Hello? Is this thing on? Hello?
What's up, man?
What's up, Ryan? How's it going?
It's going well. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, everything's good.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is so awesome to get you. Yeah, this is episode 4, I think, of my series. I've had some great people on here, and the list just keeps getting better and better. And getting you on here, man, it's just so cool. I'm so glad, I reached out to you. I was like, man, I don't know him, but he seems dope. And I was like, I'm just gonna give it a shot and see if he wants to get on here. And instantly, you were like, yeah, man, like let's do it. And I was
Cool.
like, okay. So this is really really cool. Which is also about the drum world, man. Like, you know, it brings people together who wouldn't normally get to, to talk to. And
Sure.
you know, I'm in Mississippi, and I think you're in Jacksonville, Florida, if that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's so cool. You get to go all over the world and meet people, and that's really really cool about it. And so this is really really awesome that you're here. And so thank you for doing this and the time to do it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to thank you really quick for doing this. And, I think it's a great idea. And it's not something that, everybody is doing. Like, there are a lot of resources out there. People do podcasts, this and that. But, like you said, it's just a great way for the drumming community to connect. And, it's as easy as reaching out and giving people a call and having people join and share. So, it's really cool that we can do that, and that we have the resources to do that. So, I love what you're doing. I know it's sort of early on in your series, but this definitely has the potential to be, something really cool and something big. So, so thank you for doing this.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I wanted to create an environment for, I'm an educator. And I'm all about sharing ideas and learning from different people, because I think that's really important. And, I wanted to create a space for, if there's people who may not really know me or may not really know you, or, have like watched your videos or mine or something, and like have always wanted to pick our brains or something, but they just like, I'm afraid to ask, or like, I don't know, I don't want to be weird about it, because I know I get that way sometimes. And this creates a space where it's like, it's cool. We're having a conversation. It's relaxed. You can watch in, and I want people to join these conversations and questions, and like, get on some of these topics, because, unless you ask questions, these things, get talked about. And so I wanted to create a space to make that happen and bring in quality people like yourself, where, they can get good information from people, and to encourage them to keep going and pursue what they want to do.
Sure. Well, I hope that I'm going to turn my volume up. I hope that I can provide useful information and stuff. So thank you for that. But yeah, I totally agree with that. So that's very cool.
Awesome. Well, to get started, we've got people joining in and things, but to get started, I always like to do a quick like background on my guests. I want them to just give a brief history of like how you got into music, how did you get started, what are your influences that you're going, and like how is that shaped over time, and where is that going, and where do you see yourself trying to pursue in the future, and things like that. So like a brief background, inspirational moments, how you got started, and how did you end up where you're at now?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so for me, music has always been a big part of my family in general. My dad plays, and I'm sure he's watching now, with my mom. And, so I've been around drums my whole life. As long as I can remember, there's been a drum set, in sort of the living room area or bedroom or something like that. So, it really started with that, of just being so heavily influenced by my dad, and just you know, and even though there was not any sort of push towards that, he just sort of let me sit down and create. And if I was interested in it, great. If not, you know, it wasn't a big deal either. It wasn't something to where some people are, you know, maybe forced to play in a way, and a lot of people become disengaged with music. And I've seen that a lot, even with some younger students I have that I meet, and they're like, oh, you know, well, I used to play piano. And it's like, what do you mean you used to? You're like 10 years old. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what happened? So that was, music was never forced upon me, which, you know, is always cool. It's just something that I grew to love over time. So, you know, I started with drum set early on, you know, like 5-6 years old, just kind of sitting down and just being around music in general. Like both my parents, you know, they like a wide variety of music. So, you know, me sort of being immersed in that, being exposed to different genres and styles, it's something I grew to love. So, you know, started playing drum set, getting a little more serious as I got a little older, and, you know, did middle school band, high school band, all that stuff. And, you know, it sort of came to the realization as I was graduating high school, like, you know, I can potentially do this. Like, I want to go to college for this. Like, I didn't even really know that was a thing. So, you know, you just figure, oh, people are professional musicians, they just play and do that. So I really started to weigh out those options. And, you know, I sort of grew up in Ocala, Florida. And then from there, I moved up to Jacksonville and attended University of North Florida, where I did my bachelor's and master's. And I finished with my master's in 2016. So yeah, like that time from 2010 to 2016, I mean, that was a big part of my musical journey, and where a lot of things change, you know. So I guess sort of my younger years, it was just being around the instrument and just trying to understand it as much as possible and really get into it. And then, you know, towards my last couple of years of high school is when I really wanted to take it to the next level and get really serious, and sort of everything with that. So I definitely had my ups and downs with being in school, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well. It's like I had those moments of doubt, especially like my first year or two of, I don't think I'm cut out for this. And I've had teachers tell me that.
Oh yeah.
That you may want to reconsider this. And that was devastating to me. So we'll get into that. That's a whole nother story, but that's sort of as much as I can sort of compress it without, you know, going on in every single detail. You know, it really just stems down to my family being incredibly supportive with music, and never making it something that, again, was so forced and like, you have to do it and do this and do recitals and do lessons. It's just, you know, it's something that I grew to love, and, you know, took it in a direction of my own. I also have two younger brothers that both play, and my middle brother is in the Air Force, and he's not necessarily doing music-related things, but I mean, he still plays, I'm sure. You know, he did marching band and all that stuff, and drum set, and loved it. And my youngest brother is actually going into high school, and he's all about it. He's got the itch. He's been playing super early on. So, you know, for me, that's really cool to, you know, if I've had any hand in that, of inspiring them and just helping them along the way, like that, you know, just being an educator and being a musician, like that's it. It's just really trying to inspire others, and seeing, you know, your love and dedication for music translating and you know, going off to others. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, surrounding yourself with people who support you, you know, with what it is you do is so vital. And I was blessed with the same thing. My dad is like my supporter, and I give a lot of credit to him because, you know, there are definitely times in your music career where it's like, am I really cut out for this? Like this, because the more you dig deep into something, the more you realize it's like that chart of things I know, things I know I don't know, and then things I don't know that I don't know, which is like the massive part. And
Sure.
dig deeper, and that part gets bigger, and you're like, there's so much, like there's just, it's ridiculous, and I think everybody goes through that, especially if you're going into studying, like if you go to college for it. It's definitely something that every person, I believe, kind of wrestles with. And, you know, and it kind of goes into this, you know, my teacher in my undergrad, you know, I was coming with a problem, and I was like, man, I'm thinking about maybe looking at a different field. Like, this just isn't fun anymore. Like, and
Yeah.
he said, I've been right where you're at. You know, he said, for a long time, music was your hobby, and now it's your life. And now now it's fun because now it's like your job. And
Right.
like, you need to find another hobby that's going to get your mind off, you know, if it's running, if it's playing dominoes, if it's playing tennis, or just like something, you know, anything that just can be, that's already kind of in your interest, that can be kind of fun for you. And then you need to sit down and figure out how to make music fun again. Like, dig in deep now to figure out what is it that music is special for you, because now you have to reevaluate it as you're digging, develop as a player. And that really, you know, helped me, because I was like, I never even thought of that. And I was like, I didn't realize that, yeah, I'm having to do this like every day because I want to get good. And that's good to have good teachers. So, you know, if anybody who hears this, student or maybe who wants to pursue music and gets overwhelmed, know you're not alone. Like, everybody feels that way at some point. And music is such a collective community of just support. And I love so much whenever I jump into something new and I'm, okay, you do this really well. Can you, what do you do? Like, how are you doing this? They're just like, oh man, like, sure, I'll tell you. And I think that's what's inspiring to me, and like talking to people and meeting people, and then I can pass that on to my students too, you know, like, no matter where you come from, like, it doesn't matter, you know, what you look like, what neighborhood you're from, how much money you got, how much money you don't got. Like, when you come in, you can be a musician. Like, you're no longer this XYZ, like, you're a musician, and like, how much do you want to put into this is really up to you. And that's like, that can be the space to make it happen. And I just love that. So, so I think that's really cool how, you know, your parents didn't push that on you. They just encouraged you, you know, like, yeah, if you enjoy it, do it, you know? And I think that's what we need to do. Like, you know, as a society, I think we should support people more of like, yeah, if you want to do it, go for it. Because there's always these naysayers who are like, well, how much money are you actually going to make? Are you just going to gig? And it's like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
don't worry about that. Like, one of the greatest advice I got told was, if you do what you love, the money will follow. Because if you're doing what you love, do it well, somebody's going to pay you to do it.
Right.
And that's what's important. So, so that's really cool. So, my next thing, and as people are here and you're watching this, if you have any questions, go ahead and just pop them in there in the comments, and we'll get to them. I want to start off and pick your brain, because everybody else that I've had in here so far has been really marching arts heavy, and because I've got a core background and drum corps teaching background, and a lot of these have the same kind of similar thing. And I know you do a lot of drum set and a lot of multi-percussion things and a lot of content, which I really, really love. And I think, like, when I first saw your videos, I was like, man, this dude is creative. Like, holy crap, he's putting all kinds of stuff together that I'm like, that just looks so fun. Like, why didn't I think of this? Like, this is so, and like, and you know, like, hip hop songs that I grew up listening on, and I'm like, yo, this is sick. And I'm like, man, that is just so cool. And so I was like, this guy, he gets it. Like, there's quality musicianship in there, and it's fun. Like, so what I wanted to get to, I wanted to talk about practice habits and like pick your brain on how you developed your practice systems. Like, is there a certain method that you do that is not just on drum set or multi or marimba or whatever? Is there like a set mindset for you? Is there a set of warm-ups that you typically go for? Or is there something different for each one? Or do you try to approach it depending on the piece or depending on what you want to go for? Because I think like everybody knows the importance of practice, but I think the difference is quality practice. And like, how do you develop quality practice? Like, sit down and plan before you go into setting apart a time to work on something. So I'll pick your brain on like, what is your process and thinking on your practice habits, and how do you make your quality practice time, you know, efficient, and you get out your goal at the end of it?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question, and I feel like that's definitely a question that will just go on forever, because there's not one definitive answer. It's like
Right.
you talk about that all throughout, you know, your time in music school and post music school and teaching, everything like that. So I feel like it's something. There definitely are key points of how to practice, or how to practice well and have an effective practice routine. But it really depends on sort of what goals you're trying to set and what you're trying to achieve. You know, you need to tailor, or sort of what I do is I tailor my practice session based off of what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do. And, you know, being a full-time musician, a full-time educator, like, you know, my practice methods are pretty different from when I was in school, when I had 5 and 6 hours to lock myself in a practice room a day. I don't have that anymore, and that's fine, because, you know, that was what it was, and at times it was terrible, and I just wanted to gouge my eyes out. But I mean, what I try to tell my students, and, you know, I'm going to practice what I preach of, if you can set aside 15 to 20 minutes a day, and even set a timer on your phone, have 20 minutes on your phone, get off your phone of doing whatever the hell you're doing that's
Right.
not helping you.
Right.
And, you know, if you're going to practice rudiments, rolls, dynamics, sight reading, you can incorporate all those different things. But I think with, you know, with my practice routines is I don't want to overcomplicate it. I want to keep it simple. Simply for the fact that there are so many resources out there. It can be overwhelming. It's like, I don't know what to practice because I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So, you know, at this point in my career, I have a really good idea of sort of what I need to brush up on, or new things that I want to tackle. So I think for me, it's really just keeping my chops up. Just so, you know, when I'm either playing with students or performing for them, or, you know, doing gigs outside of school, like I do a lot of musical theater. So, you know, my reading always needs to stay really sharp, especially my sight reading. So, you know, every once in a while, just sort of sit down and pull up even like just a simple snare drum or xylophone sight reading exercise or etude, and just play through it. And dedicate, you know, those 15 or 20 minutes or longer if I have more time to doing that. You know, it can seem daunting that we have this laundry list of things to do of, oh, I need to practice my, you know, rudimental snare drumming and all of this and all my mallets and drum set. And it's like, you know, if you're trying to do too many things at once, you're not retaining that information as well as you could if you just sit down, focus. And honestly, like, I've never been one to have like a log and write down and track. And, you know, for some people that works really well. And I did try that, you know, when I was in school, but it wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't as effective for me. I was finding myself practicing way too long, and then I get out of the practice room and I come back the next day, I'm like, what did I do? Like, what just happened? Like that was a total blur. That I was having to essentially waste time relearning the things that I already did.
Yeah.
And that really came with, you know, my teacher, Charlotte Mabry, which I studied with my undergrad and grad. You know, she talked about just like effective practicing of sitting down and doing 20, 30 minutes, take a break, come back, that you're able, again, to retain that information a little better. Because after a certain point, and everybody's different, you know, we all have that threshold or plateau of once we have too much information, it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? We're not taking that in and really, you know, it's not marinating with us. So, for me, I sort of know when that threshold is, when I'm just driving myself crazy, and I start to lose focus, and it's just going through my head. So, yeah, I definitely try to touch on a little bit of everything, just because I feel like I need to. You know, teaching drumline and concert percussion and doing all the mallet stuff, and you know, getting my students involved with percussion ensemble pieces. Drum set, because I play, you know, a lot of drum set, but just sort of just sharpening my skills. And then if I find stuff that I want to you know, sort of pursue and dabble in, that's new or a little more advanced, you know, I know that I can set aside some more time for that. So that would be like a weekend thing, or, you know, even right now during the summer when I'm not teaching full time, like, you know, I'll sit in my home studio and just play for a while, you know, and go through things of what I want to do. Yeah, so I think just overall, it really depends on what I'm doing. Like, I'm not going to go super heavy into shedding, you know, xylophone and bells and stuff like that if I know I don't have like a musical coming up where I have to read a lot. But if I know, you know, I get the book in advance and, you know, I really want to look at those parts, I'm definitely going to dedicate a little more time to that, and shed that a little more. So, yeah, it's weird, you know, just being like, when you're a professional, some people, you know, they find a lot of time to practice, and that's great. But it's really different for everybody. And, you know, making the excuse of saying, I don't have time. I tell my students that a lot. It's like, I don't understand that. Like, that doesn't make sense, saying you don't have time, because you do have time.
Yeah.
Even if it's spread out and broken up, you know, you don't need to sit there for an hour and just play, drive yourself crazy. So, you know, finding what works for you and your schedule, that's what it's really about. But, you know, I think one of the bigger things for me with my practice is I record myself a lot, and not just like with my content, even when I'm just practicing things and, you know, trying to fix small technical things, that always helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and everybody has, you know, a super nice phone, and even if you don't, like, again, we have so many resources that you can find something, even flip phones have videos, or whatever, I don't know. Go to the library and use their webcam or something. They would love that. But
yeah,
just using any sort of device and recording yourself, and you know, reflecting back on that and being very critical of your own playing, like that's really important. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, like 5 minutes of practicing doesn't seem like it could be you could accomplish a lot, but you really can if you have, like, my number one thing I try to do is set realistic goals. Like, don't come in and try to learn a whole piece in an hour or something like that. Like, you're already setting yourself up to be overwhelmed.
Sure.
Like, you know, set realistic goals and then do small focused chunks and then work that out. Like, when I was teaching junior high and high school, you know, I would tell them, you know, like, all right, everybody here watches TV, you know, find your show, and when the commercial is on, like, here's your homework assignment. I want you to work on these exercises or parts or whatever. And I want you to go home and watch TV. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah. And then when the commercial comes on, you mute the TV, turn on the Met, pull out the pad, and work. And focus during that commercial break. Because you're going to have easily 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, usually a commercial break. And there's like several of those during a show. And like, you can enjoy TV, focus for a minute, 5 minutes, and work on building your attention span of like focus practice, like 5-minute chunks. And then show comes back on, finish the rep, turn the Met off, unmute the TV, still watching TV. And you can accomplish these things while you're watching TV. Like you can, it doesn't have to be so like, put in a box, like you can do these things, or like sit down and put on Beyonce and like her songs to a certain tempo. All right, you want to work on 4 mounts, sit on the floor, turn on Beyonce. Let's work on that technique. And it's like you can do that and still have fun.
Sure.
And still focus and like figure out a way to make it enjoyable,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's really just finding the right time to do it, but practice can become overwhelming, and it can become this process that's just like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of people will get burnout with that. It's like, that you need to practice, but you just choose not to. And it's easier not to. It's like people that say, I want to get in better shape, but they don't go to the gym, and they eat like shit. And it's like, well, of course. Yeah.
Hey, round is a shape. So,
So, I mean, you have to be really driven with that and to just sit down and do it. But it shouldn't be this, again, super complicated process to where, we're reading this really hard excerpt or anything like that. So, doing basic warm-ups. And when I was working with my younger brother, he was up visiting, and he's going to be playing snare drum in high school band, and we were working on 8 on a hand, which is like everybody and their mom plays 8 on a hand. But I started out with asking him, Grant, like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why are we doing 8 on a hand? Why is this an exercise? What are you paying attention to? Like, I don't really know. We're playing eighth notes. It's like, well, yeah, that's what anyone would say. But when you have a different mindset sort of about that exercise or any exercise, and really break down and look at it from every angle of what you're trying to do, that takes your practice in a whole nother direction. So, something as simple as 8 on a hand of we're looking for the consistency between the right hand, the left hand, balance, the quality of your sound, thinking about each individual note, your timing, like all of those things that sort of blow over us, or it's like we're not actively thinking about. That's when it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to play 8 on a hand. And then it's just, no, that's wrong. You're missing the whole point. So, that takes the practice in a whole different direction of really looking at specific things and just being aware.
Yeah.
When myself or students or anybody, you're not really aware or engaged in what you're doing, that's when it's just like, all right, let's learn SCV snare lick from 2018, but I can't play 8 notes in time. It's like, what? That doesn't make sense. What are you doing? So, it's, and I know that's harder for a lot of younger students to sort of get. And, a lot of kids, the attention span is just like, I want to go. I want to play the hardest, coolest stuff. Let's do it. It's like, you got to take a step back. You got to take a breather and understand what you're doing, what you're trying to do. You have to build your way up to that. And like you said, setting realistic goals of not just trying to play the hardest, coolest thing. Sometimes we have to play the stupid, easy stuff that you have to really nitpick and understand what you're doing.
We're going to try to jump into these questions because we've got a few that's popped in here now.
Okay.
First one says, Greg, do you think an early player needs a teacher to guide their practice based on the fact that there could be a lot?
Can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah, does an early player need a teacher to guide them on practicing based on the fact that there's going to be a lot of info overload?
I would say absolutely yes. I mean, and we talked about that earlier of there's, especially now, with how the music industry has evolved and how, anybody can go on YouTube and look up a lesson on this and that and print out free PDFs and whatever, PDFs. And, it's overwhelming. So, when I was, say, like in middle school, like, yeah, YouTube wasn't even a thing yet because YouTube came out in 2005. But it's like, we didn't have that. And, any resources we did have were from either like a private instructor or band director. And let's face it, most of our band directors are not percussionists, so they don't know what we're doing. They don't really care. Not shaming band directors because I am one, but shame on you band directors for not being better percussionists. So I do take great pride in that, of always hooking up my percussion students and all my other students, but so I would definitely say yes, reaching out to someone, and it doesn't even have to be like a weekly thing, even sort of like a monthly thing of, reaching out to somebody that teaches locally or at a university, and you don't even have to meet them and say, hey, I'm a beginner student. I'm looking for things to practice. What do you recommend? And that will definitely get you going in the right direction because, even for professionals, like sometimes it's still overwhelming of, oh, I need to learn, my different Latin styles and do this and do that. It's like, whoa, just slow down, look at a couple things and sort of go from there. So, I would definitely recommend some sort of guidance with that for younger players, especially.
Yeah, and there was kind of a follow-up to that by the same person, which is great too. And it's what would self-teachers, like people who are teaching themselves, miss in the practice process? And I would just say it's the little detailed information that you don't know. You can probably pick up concepts, especially like I love the fact we're in the age of technology, and you can do anything and find quality teachers too. Like find people who are actually like they're legit, and
Sure.
you can get a lot of it. I still learn a lot of information from that, and usually it's a lot of big concept things. But in order to track your progress, I think it's still important to have somebody to get that from, just so you can, because you're probably going to miss some little details that you may not get, you may not catch on your own just because you don't know that information.
Absolutely.
Another question here is best practice fundamentals to be an efficient percussionist.
So sorry, can you repeat that again? The best practice methods.
The 3 best practice fundamentals to be an efficient percussionist.
That's tough to narrow it down to 3. That's a really sort of open-ended question. I think, part of being a great percussionist, it really stems down to being very versatile and well-rounded. So, I feel like snare drum and just having like great snare drum chops and a great understanding of that instrument, that goes such a long way because a lot of that information, is not just, for marching or orchestral, but doing multis, a lot of that information can be translated and applied to drum set, even mallets, and mallets goes the other way. So a lot of the technique and, musical concepts that you learn with mallets can be translated to sort of all around. So I would definitely, if I had to narrow it down to 3, just focusing on snare drum in general. So I can't really think of any specific things with that, but just, your reading, rudiments, and I guess really your just overall sound. And then taking sort of those bigger musical concepts or ideas and, you know, going along with mallets and drum set. It really depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to invest a lot of time into hand drumming and be a great hand drum percussionist and get gigs that way, then, you know, maybe you don't need to spend a lot of time on mallets and this and that. Like, really get into the fundamentals and the core of, you know, being a great conga player or djembe player, whatever. Yeah, so it is a tough question, but you have to sort of understand that it is all related. Like a lot of, and I didn't get that until I was a couple of years into school of, well, how is me, you know, playing 4-mallet marimba gonna make me a great drum set player? And I was like, that's dumb. Like, I just want to practice drum set. No.
Yeah.
A lot of the shaping and phrasing and musicality of that instrument, it helped me so much with being musical and opening new ideas and opening my ears to things and concepts on drum sets. So, you know, it is all definitely interconnected in some way. It really depends on sort of what you, and yeah, it's a tough question.
Cool. Yeah, I think what I try to instill into all of my students, try to think about, you need to always ask yourself, no matter what instrument you're playing, no matter what it is you're doing, you need to ask yourself 4 questions every time you go to play. What am I hitting? What am I hitting it with? Where am I hitting? And how am I going to hit it? And that's really, if you can answer all 4 of those questions deeply and not just, oh, I'm using the stick and I'm just going to hit it here. You know, it's like, no, like really think about the sounds that you're creating, because what comes out of those 4 questions is going to be, is 3 main points. Your technique that you're going to use, because it's going to be different on what you're hitting it with, and then how you're going to hit it, and all of that, and where you're going to hit it. All that stuff shapes around technique, what technique you're using. Your timing is crucial, because how I'm going to hit it and where I'm going to hit it, I might have to think about my timing might be different if it's in a different location. I may have to move the physics, all of that a little bit differently. Sure. And making sure that that's solid if I'm going to a different surface or using a different technique. And then lastly is timbre. You know, what kind of sound am I wanting to create here? So I call it my 3 T's, my 4 Q's, and my 3 T's. And it's a nice cutie question, but cutie.
Well, yeah, I really like that. I'm going to have to steal that from you. And it's, you know, it puts it into perspective of, like, again, just being sort of aware of what you're doing and not rushing into things like, all right, let's play stuff. It's like, you know, whoa, let's not be, you know, 13 years old and want to conquer the world and do everything. Yeah. I think
that's the difference between someone who's like kind of an amateur musician and someone who's more mature. You know, if you're constantly just like building that self-awareness and thinking about it deeply about what you're doing, not overthink it, but like have some purpose to what it is that you're wanting to come out. What is the end goal here? Because we're here to produce some sound, right? Sure. We want it to be quality sound, and you know, so what can we do to make that happen? Well, okay, well, let me go back to my 4 questions, you know, because it sounds silly sometimes to, all right, well, what is it? What am I hitting? It's like, well, that's a very important question, because you need to know, you know, what this instrument is and what is a full, rich sound instrument. What is the points of the instrument? Where can I get different sound from that instrument? What is its natural tendencies, things, and understanding the instrument, you know, and what techniques am I going to use to use? What am I going to hit it with? Am I using my hand? Am I using a soft mouth? You know, all those things that come into play, because there's so many variables. So it makes you like think about the choices doing as you play it. And even after the fact, if you've learned whatever it is that you want to learn and you feel very confident and you're playing it very well, then go back and ask the same questions. It's like, okay, what if I changed my technique a little bit? Would it be a different result? Would it be better? What if I played in a different spot? Where I hit it is, could that be different? What I hit it with? Could that change how that is? And I think that if you start asking yourself those questions, it's really going to take your musicianship to, another level, and you're going to build that self-awareness.
Sure. Well, and I want to sort of piggyback off that and add that, you're never too young to really sort of start thinking about those ideas and concepts. And, sometimes things fit better with, maybe a junior, senior in high school of, I get this. Like I can, think critically and problem solve and really take a step back and think about all those different things versus, a middle school kid that's like, can't wait to go home and eat his chicken nuggets and chocolate milk and play Minecraft. And he's not thinking about what implement he's using and his different stroke. I mean, let's be realistic. And I'm not saying that for everybody, but I teach middle school, so it's like I see the mindset sometimes. Yeah. And it's great. I love it. I got to give it to them. But what I want to add with that is, again, you're never too young to understand those concepts and just think about them because, being out and, going out to dinner and seeing a band, whatever. And, I always pay attention to the group or whatever. And I've seen some older guys that he's sitting there at the drum set and it's like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's like, his technique is weird and whatever. And, he may not be a professional and I'm not there to judge and criticize and anything like that. It makes you wonder. It's like, did he ever think about those things? And just because, say, he's been playing for 30 or 40 years, that may be something that he's never really had conversation with of, thinking about, what implement you're using and stroke type and quality of sound. It's just like, here it is, go. So really trying to instill that in, younger and intermediate, even advanced students of always having a reminder. Like you're never too young or too old to think about those concepts. And, even for myself, like learning from colleagues and friends, whatever, and hearing those things, it serves as a reminder because there's so much to do and there's so much to talk about. It's like, oh yeah, I really should think about more about my rebound stroke or anything like that because it's something that I know about, but it's not something I'm actively thinking about or paying attention to.
Yeah, that's true. We got another question. What did you learn best from your percussion education to make you a better performer?
Man,
they're getting used to.
Yeah, another good question. I would really have to say just playing with confidence, trusting yourself, trusting the process. It really wasn't until my junior year of college when I did my junior recital that, I felt really good about my performance and that I didn't have that overwhelming sense of performance anxiety and anything like that because I feel like my first couple of years I'm just trying to scramble and it's like, oh my God, what do I do? And it's like, do I mess up or what's going on? That I feel like at that point I had put in enough time sort of for myself, working on the pieces and understanding the instruments a little better and just, again, being around it more. That I had that sensation of stepping on stage sort of for the first time and being like, yeah, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to own it and I'm okay with mistakes. Mistakes are something that it's going to happen. Uh-oh, are we lagging? We good? Okay. Yeah, so I really think it's a matter of confidence and looking at the big picture.
Yeah, I think trust the process is super, super important. Like, if I could make a shirt, I'd be like hashtag trust the process on it, because like it takes time, and like be confident, trust the process. Like I totally agree. Like that is wise words. That is just like, man, you just got to keep doing it. Just gotta keep doing it, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I feel like I reached that point to where there are times where I still get nervous. But for the most part, you know, I sort of just hype myself up, and it's like, you gotta be able to roll with it. And I think a big part of performance anxiety just comes from, what if I make a mistake, or what if I forget something, or this and that. And, you know, that the stuff happens. I tell my students this all the time, that in music, perfection does not exist. It doesn't. And we don't really want it to. Like, yes, we want to have a good performance and play with as few mistakes as possible, and to play with a great sound, and you know, be proud of your work. But, you know, small mistakes here and there, like that's going to happen. That's part of it. If we wanted it to be perfect, then we would put a huge curtain in front of us and play it from, like, you know, a computer or like a MIDI file where it's just flawless. That's not music. That totally takes the, you know,
the human element, man. Like
yeah,
that's the whole.
yeah, it totally takes it out of it, and it's like that's dumb. It doesn't really make sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to stray away from that question too much, but it's really just a matter of confidence, and just owning it, and really enjoying it,
Yeah.
and just being in the moment.
I had one of the one of the funniest things I heard from my undergrad teacher was I was playing marimba, you know, especially when you get a piece that's very tonal, you know, like it's obvious when you hit a wrong note. And he told me, he always told me, he was like, hey, if you hit a wrong note, hit it again.
I like that. I like that.
Hit it twice, because the first time they'll be like, that was interesting, and then the second time they'll be like, oh, well, I guess that was intentional. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
I'm gonna grab a stand. Just seriously, like, owning it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's weird. It's a hard thing to sort of grasp onto, and really understand, and to be okay with it. But, you know, the more that you do it, the easier it becomes, and you sort of know what to expect. It's like, oh, well, I've made those mistakes before. It's not like super shocking to me. So, let's go with it.
Always my first performance with my students.
Oh,
It's their first performance ever. Mom and dad's there. Everybody's shaking, you know. And I'm like, okay, guys, what is the worst thing that could happen? Like, if this thing just sounded like a dump truck, like, what is the worst thing that could happen? Would somebody die? They're like, well, no. I'm like, okay, somebody get hurt? And it was like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then there you go. I'm like, you know, don't.
yeah. And, you know, even like a school performance, you know, that should be, and that's a big thing for students, and, you know, as it should be. And the students that make a big deal, it just shows that they care, right?
Yeah.
Versus the kids, it's like, oh, well, whatever, I don't really care. It's like, well, why are you even here? But, you know, there's a totally different element when either you're in school or you're a professional, that there's that added level of pressure. You know, if you have a performance and you're a professional, and, you know, depending on the crowd you're playing for, or if it's a gig, whatever, and, you know, there's something else involved, like the stakes are a little higher. It's like, yeah, you know, I've had plenty of performances where there's a lot on the line and I didn't play my best. And I just, God, I get so mad at myself and so self-critical, and that's just who I am, and it's never going to change. And that's okay too. I feel like that it's better to beat yourself up, and to sort of have those moments of reflection of like, I don't want to experience that again. Like, this did not feel good. That did not sit well with me. I love music, but I hated everything about that performance, and it's just like, it's just a weird, weird feeling. So, you know, and like we talked about in the beginning of this, of we're going to have those ups and downs. Not every performance is going to be, you know, great, or you go in super confident, and there are a lot of variables to that, and things are going to change. So it's tough.
Yeah,
It's,
right.
I definitely feel like experiencing all levels of that will help make you a better musician. Again, you know what to expect. It's like, I had a bad performance. This is why it was bad. I didn't feel good about it. Let's do things to sort of not let that happen again.
Yeah, and just learn to embrace it. Like, you know,
Sure.
you're gonna get like people who have been playing for years and years and years. They still get nervous. You know, it's just dealing with yourself. They call it that self one, self two kind of thing. And there's like all these like performance study things, and it's like learning how to deal with that interference to where it doesn't affect your performance, because like performance equals practice minus interference or something like that. There's a big formula for that. And I have to find the articles for it. They're really deep, but it makes sense. It's like, you know, you got to learn how to just embrace it, like, and just tell yourself it's going to be what it is. And if you're properly prepared, then just give them a show.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Got one more question, and we probably be getting close to wrapping this up. But this says, did you know you wanted to be a band director whenever you were in school?
No, I didn't. And that was, you know, never really in the cards for me. So both of my degrees were in performance. I did not take the education track. And there wasn't really any specific reason. You know, I knew that I wanted to perform and do all that, but being in music school, within like the first 2 years, I started to realize sort of how the industry works and what it all entails. So being a performer, you are not just limited to only performing. As a performer, you will teach, you'll do that. As an educator, you will perform, you do this, you do that. You know, some people like to stay super strict with that stuff and only teach because they don't like to perform or do that, or it's not really in their interest, and that's fine. But I really think, you know, being a successful musician and getting work and doing all that and having it be really fulfilling, you know, you need to sort of get your hand in the pot and dabble in a little bit of everything. You know, going on Broadway, anything like that. You know, really take advantage of those opportunities and just try it out. It may be something that you're sort of hesitant about or scared, but you're never really going to know.
Yep.
Yeah, so just to sort of wrap up that question, you know, that was something, being a band director is something that I thought about, and I was like, yeah, you know, that'd be cool, but I felt like I was kind of maybe behind the 8 ball because I didn't take that education path. I was like, well, I don't know, that'd be like it'd be a big change from sort of what I'm doing, or what I wanted to do. So, you know, I never ruled that out. I always kept my options open with that, and things just sort of fell into place. You know, different doors opened up, and you know, I had the opportunity to take that position at the school that I'm at, and I absolutely love it. It's really, really cool. I'm at a great school that is very supportive, and you know, it's really cool just working with students all the time. You know, and I try to treat my band classes as if I'm doing a lesson. I'm just talking, instead of to one percussionist, I'm talking to 30 kids, and they have trumpets and clarinets and this and that. So yeah, it's been cool for me because I'm always trying to learn new things and improve myself as a musician. So this has definitely taken me a whole new direction of, you know, how do I talk to a clarinet player? I need to know things about clarinet, and tone and everything like that, and color, and, you know, fundamentals. So it's just really taken my musical approach in a totally different direction, but has definitely helped me even in, you know, gigs that I have doing theater or playing with like wedding bands and stuff, I'm listening to other things. I know what to listen for. So it's, again, it's all full circle. It's all intertwined. It all connects. And I think that's really the coolest thing about music is that it is all related somehow. And you can't really say that it's not, because it is.
Absolutely, man. That's nail on the head. It's all important. That's right. So I haven't had any questions in a little while. I want to just ask one little thing, just because I enjoy your content. Are there any surprise new videos going to do ideas you got in mind?
Oh man, you're putting the pressure.
Are they just out of nowhere? You think?
Yeah, well, so I record most of my videos at the school because I live relatively close to my school, so that's been cool. It's like, you know, I have a big practice space and, you know, lots of gear to record on and stuff like that, so I'm very fortunate for that. But I have set up sort of my home studio to be able to do stuff here. Yeah, I honestly, with a lot of the multi-videos I do, some of them I think about and I plan out and I try to get different ideas with that. And you know, I'll throw up the bass drum with the multi legs, a gong, and like a, you know, timbre jam or woodblock, and just go with it, right? So I found that once I add like too much stuff, it's like, dude, that sucked. Like, what was that? That was terrible. Okay, so I start taking things away and whatever. But some of my best ideas have come from just really simplistic videos, and you know, I hope people take note of that. Of, you don't need a ton of stuff to sound great, and you don't necessarily need the best and finest equipment to sound great. With a lot of my videos, I just use my phone. I don't even use mics. So I really just try to strip it down and keep it super simple, and just kind of go with it. So, yeah, I guess I should pull out some fancy stuff and do something cool since we talked about it. Now the pressure's on. Now I know you're going to be watching. So, yeah, really my whole idea to do videos and grooves that people aren't doing on Instagram or social media. Like, I know people are doing them for sure, and that's great. And I'm hoping that more people can do that stuff. You know, it's like, yeah, it's great. I scroll through Instagram and I see 80 drum set videos of like, here's a groove. Okay, cool. That's great and all. But I like to keep it fresh, change it up a little bit, and you know, put myself out as an artist of like, I'm doing something just a little bit different that is not out of the realm of what anybody else could do.
Yeah, that's like totally what had turned me on to your stuff, because I was like, oh man, this is like, now I'm getting a different flavor. I think that encourages a lot of people to think outside the box. You know, I think that's really cool.
Sure. Yeah, it's, you know, and you know, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I try to do some cool stuff that's captivating even to maybe non-musicians or non-percussionists and stuff. But I know that sort of my general audience is percussionists. But just trying to encourage people to just kind of do the same thing and be creative. If you're sitting down at drum set, or, you know, incorporating some of those ideas into marching, or, you know, outworking like that. Like, it's, again, it's all connected. So, yeah, I definitely have had a lot of fun with those videos. And I find that they're far less stressful to do than drum set videos, because I just like nitpick it until it's dead, until my brain is dead. I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm ready to go home. Like, I'm slamming my sticks on the wall. I'm like, this is dumb. Like, okay, I'm done. But with the multi videos, yeah, they drive me crazy. But, you know, it's just, I'm thinking about too much. I'm thinking about the quality of my sound, everything, and that's okay. You know, and none of my videos are perfect by any means.
Right.
Not like super polished. It's like if some stick clicks here and there or whatever, and, you know, I'll depend on the you know, people on Instagram like, oh, you clicked your sticks, and it's like, okay, like I don't care. So, you know,
I think that's cool though because it keeps it raw. You know.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
So
That's really cool. Well, I apologize for all the technical.
yeah, sorry, my bad too. I tried to move to a better spot where, I mean, I have like everything off in my house, like my PlayStation's off, and it's like I tried to really keep the Wi-Fi free, so you can't ever depend on Wi-Fi for anything.
Yeah, and so I apologize. Things on my end too, so I apologize for that. And, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I'm glad we got to chat and connect, do some things in the future. That would be really, really cool too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and well, I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. See ya.
All right. Thanks, man.